Just days before she vanished, Esra Uyrun was doing all the normal things a devoted mother and daughter does, planning her parents' visit, caring for her little boy, and settling into life with a husband who loved her. Nothing pointed to danger, nothing hinted at the nightmare to come. Then, out of nowhere, CCTV captured her car moving in a bizarre, erratic way, swerving, stopping, behaving like something was very wrong, before it was found abandoned near Bray. And from that moment, Esra herself was simply gone. No answers, no explanation. A family left shattered, and a disappearance that still makes no sense. This is the baffling, unsettling mystery of Esra Uyrun. Welcome to Crimes That Haunt Us. We release a new case every Sunday at 6 p.m, so hit subscribe and don't miss the next one. And let me know your thoughts on this case in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Esra Uyrun was born on the 1st of March in 1972 into a Turkish immigrant family in the gritty, vibrant heart of North London in the UK, where her parents had settled after leaving Turkey in search of a better life. Her mother Merriman and her father, whose name is not publicly disclosed, raised Esra alongside several siblings, including her fiercely protective older sister, Berna, and at least one brother. The family was anchored deep in the Turkish community of neighbourhoods like Hackney and similar North London enclaves, where they clung to strong cultural, linguistic and religious traditions. Massive family gatherings that spilled out of living rooms, the smell of Turkish cuisine drifting through the streets, and regular trips back to relatives still living in Turkey, while at the same time fully embracing every aspect of British life. Esra was the youngest child, described by Berna as quiet as a child, but who exploded into a vibrant, attractive, outgoing and fun-loving teenager and young adult with a razor-sharp wit, an infectious laugh that could light up the darkest room, and an almost magical ability to make friends wherever she went. Educationally, Esra excelled and poured herself into the arts in college. From a very young age, she was intensely creative, producing beautiful paintings, designing and sewing her own clothes, and even organizing and hosting small art shows of her work across London. Colleagues and family remembered her as meticulous, always volunteering for extra shifts and organizing charity drives for Turkish community causes, such as raising funds for earthquake relief in Turkey. And it was in this environment that Esra met her future husband, Oscar Uyrun, a fellow Turkish Londoner working as an engineer. Their shared heritage, ambition and wicked sense of humor created an instant electric connection. They married in a modest but joyful ceremony in the early 2000s, surrounded by family in London. The couple settled into a comfortable, happy life in the city, Esra continuing her work whilst Oscar climbed the engineering ladder. In approximately 2007, Oscar landed a lucrative job offer from a multinational engineering firm with a position based in Dublin, Ireland. Seeing it as a temporary adventure for better pay and a calmer pace of life, the childless couple packed up and moved across the Irish Sea, fully intending to return to London within a few years to be closer to their aging parents and siblings. They bought a modest 3-bedroom semi-detached house on Collinstown Grove in the working-class suburb of Clondalkin, West Dublin, a quiet residential area with patches of green but almost no public transport, making their single car absolutely essential. Esra adapted with breathtaking ease, her outgoing nature turning neighbors into friends through community events and her now legendary Turkish baking sessions. She paused her career to settle in, throwing herself into occasional volunteering with local charities, supporting immigrant families, drawing directly on her own experience. The couple began talking seriously about starting a family, and in late 2008, Esra gave birth to their only child, a son, Emin Oscar Uyrun, at Dublin Hospital. At 36, she became a doting, hands-on mother who sang Turkish lullabies to Emin and filled photo albums with every milestone. Oscar balanced a demanding job with precious family time. The family owned just one vehicle, a silver grey 2008 Renault Twingo, registration 08D23067, a compact, fuel-efficient car perfectly suited to Dublin's congested roads. Ezra occasionally dipped back into part-time work or charity organising, but Emin was her absolute priority, a cheeky, happy toddler who lit up her world. By 2010, the Uyrons were financially secure and openly planning a permanent move back to England within 1 or 2 years, for Emin's sake, to be closer to grandparents, better schools, and the chance for Ezra to restart her career. Then, in October 2010, Ezra's father, who had suffered a devastating stroke some 20 years earlier, had been frail for a long time. He tragically passed away from an undisclosed illness, plunging Merriman and the entire family into grief. Ezra and her family made the gut-wrenching journey back to London for the funeral. Ever the caregiver, Ezra rallied everyone and booked return flights for her mother and Oscar's mother to visit Dublin from the 24th of February 2011 for a full month, timed perfectly around her own 39th birthday on the 1st of March, with spa treatments, home-cooked feasts, and joyful outings planned. On the 29th of December 2010, Ezra flew back to the UK for the birth of her nephew. Berna later described Ezra as finally being back to herself after the raw grieving period following their father's death. In the weeks leading up to the 23rd of February, Ezra was upbeat and jovial, chatting animatedly with Berna about visit logistics, birthday cakes, and Emin's latest antics. No signs of marital strain, financial woes, depression, or external pressures ever emerged. On the Sunday before her disappearance, Ezra called Berna in London and asked her to pack a list of spices for the Turkish recipes she planned to cook when the mothers arrived. On the Monday, Ezra phoned a friend in the UK to wish her son a happy second birthday. Tuesday, 22nd of February, a neighbour spotted Ezra putting out bin bags and joked with her about a February spring clean. But Ezra excitedly told her that she was getting the house ready for the incoming visit from her mother and mother-in-law. Everything pointed to happiness and preparations. Wednesday, the 23rd of February, dawned cold, dry and overcast, the first day of Ireland's mid-term school break, with roads eerily empty, pedestrian traffic almost non-existent in Clondalkin, which became a crucial detail that would later prove devastating for witnesses. At around 7:20 a.m., Oscar was preparing for work in the kitchen while Emin played nearby with toys. Ezra, dressed casually in black leggings, a dark hoodie or long-sleeve top, and distinctive white Nike trainers with a pink swoosh, announced she was just popping out to the nearby spa, just a 4 to 5 minute drive, to buy milk and bread because supplies had run low overnight. Oscar reminded her he needed the car by 8 a.m. for work. She grabbed only her small coin purse, which contained €60 in notes, some cash, driving license and a bank card, and likely her mobile phone. Oscar recalled the routine goodbye kiss and her casual assurance. "I'll be back in a few minutes," she said. He had planned to take the Twingo to work and the gym. A neighbour's private CCTV then captured the silver Renault Twingo departing the Collinstown Grove house eastward at around 7:20 a.m. This would be the last confirmed visual of Ezra alive, though the driver's face is obscured in the footage. She never reached the spa. Staff would later confirm there was no sighting of her and no purchases made. By 7:45 a.m., Oscar grew concerned, and by 8 a.m. he was alarmed. He then arranged to grab a lift from a colleague to work, dropped Emin at the creche as usual, and began frantic calls and texts to Ezra's phone throughout the day. Ezra's phone simply went unanswered. At 8 a.m., the Renault Twingo's car registration was captured on the Power City roundabout in Clondalkin, a maximum 5-minute drive from home, yet 40 unaccounted-for minutes had already passed. The whereabouts of Ezra is not known between this window. At 8:30 a.m., Ezra's car was filmed entering Bray Head, pulling into the car park by the Star Amusement Arcade, and stayed for less than 30 seconds before leaving again and rejoining the one-way system. The CCTV is of extremely low resolution, making the driver or any occupants completely indistinguishable. By 8:40 a.m., the car shot out of Convent Avenue onto Strand Road, driving erratically, swerving into oncoming traffic and nearly colliding head-on with a grey or silver Skoda Octavia before continuing. Despite repeated public appeals on television, radio and posters, the driver of that Skoda Octavia has never come forward, despite what would have been a shocking, memorable near crash. Meanwhile, later in the day, sometime in the afternoon, Esra's husband, now frantic, contacted the Gardai to report his wife missing, but officers told him Esra was an adult and would probably come home soon, and that not enough time had passed to classify her as a missing person. Oscar then rang Esra's sister Berna in London to break the news. At approximately 11 p.m., nearly 16 hours after she left for milk and bread, a passerby spotted the locked Renault Twingo in the public car park at the base of Bray Head in County Wicklow, facing the Irish Sea promenade, about 30 kilometres southeast of Clondalkin. The scenic cliffside spot is popular with joggers and dog walkers by day, but was eerily isolated on that mid-term evening. Esra Uyrun's husband formally reported her missing at Ronanstown Garda station in the early hours of the 24th of February 2011, shortly after the silver-grey Renault Twingo had been discovered. Upon examination of the vehicle, Esra's small coin purse with its €60 in notes, some cash, her bank card and driving license was eerily found in the boot, but there was no phone, no keys, no handbag and no sign of Esra herself. A preliminary forensic examination revealed only family fingerprints and no reported damage or signs of any struggle. The case was assigned to Ronanstown's Missing Persons Unit under Detective Sergeant David O'Callaghan. Within 48 hours, by the 25th of February, the Gardai privately informed the family they were treating the disappearance as a likely suicide, citing the car's location at Bray Head, which is a notorious spot with multiple incidents every year, and the phone's last passive cell tower signal was detected near Bray Head between 8 to 8:40 a.m., matching the vehicle's arrival on the CCTV. Officers also raised the possibility of a voluntary disappearance or a runaway scenario, suggesting the midterm break's reduced traffic might have allowed her to vanish without a trace. These conclusions were delivered bluntly to the family, including on the very morning Esra's mother Merriman and Oscar's mother arrived from London on the 24th, turning what should have been a joyful reunion into utter devastation. Esra's sister Berna, who flew in from London immediately and has led the fight for answers ever since, has repeatedly described the Gardai's initial response as dismissive and insensitive across 14 years of interviews. She recalled officers telling the family, "We think she killed herself or ran away," with no immediate exploration of foul play. Berna would fire back, "Find me a body if it was suicide," and pointed out that against a runaway theory, she only had the clothes on her back. Her purse was found in the boot of her car. You can't be running away with nothing. The family hammered home Esra's lack of mental health history, stable finances, her happy marriage, and absolute devotion to her small son Emin, and genuine excitement for the mother's visit. But the early searches reflected the Gardai's self-harm focus. The DMR West and Wicklow teams, divers, air support helicopters and cadaver dogs with the mountain rescue team concentrated their searches on the Bray Head cliffs, the shoreline and Dublin Bay waters. But nothing was found despite detailed sea current modelling. CCTV scrutiny proved exhaustive but maddeningly frustrating. The neighbours' tape confirmed the 7:20 a.m. departure. The Power City roundabout CCTV in Clondalkin captured the Twingo at 8 a.m., a 40-minute anomaly for a 4 to 5 minute trip, heading in completely the opposite direction from the spa. From there, the route to Bray aligned, arriving at 8:30 a.m. The Bray Promenade rotating camera showed the Twingo turning right from the Convent Avenue onto Strand Road at around 8:40 a.m., driving erratically, swerving into oncoming traffic, nearly colliding with the silver Skoda Octavia. Upon viewing this CCTV, the family insisted to the Gardai that Esra was a nervous and cautious driver who would never have driven so recklessly. But the low-resolution, poorly lit footage failed to identify the driver or indeed any occupants. The car park footage was then broadcast on Irish television's RTE's Crime Call. This footage was from 10:30 a.m. when the rotating camera had swung around the car park had filled up, giving a completely false impression of a busy area, when in reality, 2 hours earlier when Esra's car had arrived, the place would have been almost deserted. Esra's brother flew in, and with Berna, they viewed the CCTV of an idle or anxious woman that the detectives were suggesting was Esra walking toward the cliff head and never returning, supporting their suicide theory. But both siblings were adamant that the low-resolution figure in the CCTV was not their sister, citing the poor-quality figure as having the wrong build and gait to their sister. Berna also pointed out the presence of a dog in the footage and insisted that the woman was simply a local dog walker standing idle and looking back at her pet, not an anxious Esra. She stressed that this was a hugely popular dog-walking route in Bray, and if you walked a little further south you would reach another car park, then a road, and a path that continued all the way to Greystones, which she says could account for this woman not returning back the same way. In March 2011, the Gardai carried out extensive house-to-house inquiries in Clondalkin and Bray, alongside digital analysis of Esra's phone records, with the last passive cell tower ping showing as near Bray Head between 8 and 8:40 a.m, with no active calls or texts after 7:20 a.m, and they also found no activity on her bank accounts or social media. Esra Uyrun was interviewed extensively and cleared early. No evidence of marital discord or financial issues emerged, plus he had an alibi. Berna decided to stay on in Ireland and worked relentlessly herself trying to find her sister. She personally staked out the Bray car park every morning for weeks, speaking to approximately 90% of the repeat joggers and dog walkers, but she found no sightings of her beloved sister. And by the summer of 2011, Berna's mother Merriman begged her to return to London, terrified of losing another daughter in Dublin. Berna reluctantly went home. The case of Esra turned cold, with detectives firmly believing that she had tragically committed suicide, much to the dismay of her family. On the 23rd of February 2012, the first anniversary of Esra's disappearance, Berna and her daughter Ada were back in Ireland putting up missing person posters. Ada placed a poster in a chip shop in Neilstown. The owner then came running after her and handed her and Berna a set of house and car keys on a fob which bore photographs of Esra and Emin and Esra and Oscar. He explained he had found them on the counter sometime before Christmas in 2011 and hung them on the wall, planning to hand them over personally the next time he saw her, stating he thought she would likely be back at some stage looking for her sister. It remains unknown why the owner never brought this significant find to the Gardai instead of waiting months for a family member to walk in, with no guarantee anyone would ever return to that exact shop. Berna took the keys straight to Ronanstown Garda Station, where investigators initially suggested they might have been an old set Esra had lost in August 2010. But Berna immediately rebutted that, asking how Esra could have driven anywhere without the keys, and, more crucially, she told them the specific keyring photographs were ones Esra had proudly shown her on a recent trip to London. These were the keys used the morning she vanished. But the burning question remains: how did those keys travel from Bray Head back to a Neilstown chip shop? This discovery quietly shifted the internal Garda focus toward possible foul play, though publicly the case remained classified simply as a missing person with lingering self-harm or voluntary disappearance undertones. Oscar and Emin decided it was best that they leave Ireland, and they relocated to London to be closer to the family. February 2013, on the second anniversary, media appeals from the Irish Mirror and others highlighted the keys' return as a major breakthrough, with Berna back in Ireland urging anyone with information to come forward. Gardai re-interviewed the Clondalkin neighbors but found no new witnesses or information. The case was featured in Turkish media to reach the immigrant community, but all of these efforts yielded nothing. In early 2015, the high-profile trial of architect Graham Dwyer for the 2012 murder of Elaine O'Hara dominated Irish headlines. The parallels were impossible for the Uyrun family to ignore. Both women disappeared on a Wednesday, both cars were found abandoned at isolated coastal locations, O'Hara at Killikee in the Dublin mountains, Esra at Bray Head Promenade. Both cases were initially treated by Gardai as possible suicides, and in both instances the women's keys and phones were missing. But most chillingly, Elaine O'Hara's remains were not discovered until September 2013, more than a year after she vanished, despite extensive early searches. As the Dwyer trial unfolded in the Central Criminal Court throughout January to April, Berna contacted senior officers at Roninstown Garda Station and formally requested that Esra's file be re-examined in light of the O'Hara case, specifically asking whether Dwyer, who was known to have travelled extensively around Dublin and Wicklow, could be linked. Roninstown, under Detective Sergeant David O'Callaghan, carried out a comparative review of Esra's disappearance alongside a number of other unsolved missing women cases from the greater Dublin area. Gardai interviewed Dwyer in custody about any possible knowledge of Esra. He denied involvement. No forensic, digital, or circumstantial connections were found, and the review officially ruled out any link. However, the exercise did prompt a fresh appeal in March to April 2015. Gardai issued new statements asking motorists who regularly use the M50 between Clondalkin and the N11 turnoff on the morning of the 23rd of February 2011 to come forward, particularly anyone who may have had dashcam footage or who remembered seeing the distinctive silver-grey Renault Twingo being driven erratically or followed. The appeal was widely covered by RTE, the Irish Independent, and the Evening Herald, and posters were redistributed along the M50 corridor. But no viable new witnesses emerged from this push. The Dwyer comparison marked the first time the Gardai publicly acknowledged that Esra's case shared features with a proven homicide rather than a straightforward self-harm scenario. For Berna, it was bittersweet validation that the early dismissal of foul play had been premature, even though it yielded no immediate breakthrough. Between 2016 to 2018, for 3 consecutive anniversaries, Berna made the journey from London to Dublin, heading straight to Roninstown Garda Station for her scheduled meeting with Detective Sergeant David O'Callaghan and the Missing Persons Unit. These were closed-door sessions lasting several hours in which Berna presented updated lists of questions, pressed for progress reports on the still unreviewed Clondalkin CCTV, and repeatedly demanded that the case be escalated to the Garda's Serious Crime Review Team, the unit responsible for cold case homicides. Each year she was told the file remained under active review, but that resources were stretched and no new evidence justified a full SCRT takeover. Routine attempts to enhance the grainy Bray promenade footage and the Skoda near-miss clip were carried out using technology available at the time, but every attempt failed to produce a clear image of the driver or the woman seen walking toward the cliffs. False sightings and hoax tips continued to trickle in, with some from as far away as Turkey and Canada, forcing Gardai to waste weeks chasing leads that led nowhere. On the 8th anniversary in February 2019, Berna broke with her usual private meeting routine and gave a lengthy, emotional interview to the journal.ie in which she explicitly labelled Esra's case a cold case for the first time in mainstream media. She said the Gardai allowed the investigation to stagnate, pointing out that the original incident room had long been disbanded, and publicly demanded that the case be handed to the Serious Crime Review Team immediately. 8 years is too long for a mother to wait without a single new lead, she told the reporter. Gardai responded with a short statement acknowledging the family's pain and confirming that the file was still active and periodically reviewed, but they stopped short of announcing any escalation. That spring, Berna and her daughter Ada printed thousands of new posters and, with the help of local volunteers, they repapered bus stops, shops and community centres along the M50 corridor and in Bray. The posters carried a fresh appeal line: "Do you remember anything from the morning of the 23rd of February 2011? Despite the renewed visibility, no credible witnesses came forward, and the year ended with the family facing the painful reality that Esra's disappearance was slipping further into the category of Ireland's long-term unresolved cases. 14 anniversaries on, Berna has never once missed the pilgrimage to Dublin. Every year she checks into the same modest hotel near the Red Cow and walks into Ronanstown station clutching a folder that has grown thicker with unanswered questions. She has sat opposite the same lead investigator, David O'Callaghan, for more than a decade, listening to the same assurances that the file is still open, while watching her mother Merriman survive cancer, a stroke, and now the slow decline of extreme old age, all without knowing where Esra is. Emin is now 17, a young man who has grown up without his mother and with the quiet burden of knowing that potentially, somewhere, someone still holds the answer. Esra Uyrun's story remains marked by the painful weight of not knowing, an absence that leaves more questions than answers. As we close, we acknowledge the heartbreak of a life interrupted and the lingering hope for clarity that still hasn't come. Her name deserves to be remembered not only for who she was, but for the truth that is yet to be found, and for the silence that should never have been her legacy. Thank you for watching and listening to Esra's story. Please feel free to add your own thoughts and theories down below, and we'll see you next time.